This is episode 11. Did we just become best friends? I'm Mark Denny. I love movies and I'm all about the movie going experience. So much so, I had to create a show called The Weekly Reference just so I had a place to geek out for a little bit. If you found this on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, etc., I really appreciate you stopping by to check it out. On this week's episode, we're going to cover some casting news in Mark's top 5, including Mark Ruffalo joining Spider-Man Brand New Day and the controversy surrounding Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey. Also, want to talk a little bit about comedy movies. I feel like we don't get a chance to talk about it a lot, so I want to talk about it this week. Also, I watched Happy Gilmore too, and so let's get into it. All right, so Mark's Top 5 this week is covering July 28th through August 2nd. I'm happy I delayed the episode a little bit because some news dropped late Friday afternoon, and so I'm happy I get to talk about it here. So Hollywood Reporter's reporting that Mark Ruffalo is officially in talks to be in Spider-Man Brand New Day. Mark Ruffalo has been a spotlight actor in the MCU since 2012's The Avengers. He's grown with the character the Incredible Hulk / Bruce Banner. At this point in time, he's Professor Hulk, like he has the brain and the brawn put together. So he's not that. I want to, for some reason, I want to say maniac, but he's not loose. He's not, turns into the Hulk and starts destroying everything. He's subdued. He's super smart. And they made that decision in Avengers Endgame. And so the last time we saw him was on She-Hulk. And I've been missing Hulk. I've been missing a little Hulk. I mean, I felt like everyone kind of missed the Hulk, especially when the excitement regarding Red Hulk's appearance in Captain America Brave New World. I think everybody was looking for that savage Hulk, that out of control, wonderful beast, right? And so, but with Mark Ruffalo at this point, he is Smart Hulk. So we don't know in what capacity is his appearance in Spider-Man Brand New Day. I'm really curious about it because, like I said, the last time we saw him, it was in She-Hulk, and he was in a more mentorship type position. And it seems like Spider-Man's carrying that tradition of having these older statesmen that were a part of the Avengers to team up with Spider-Man or Peter Parker. But at the end of No Way Home, it's established that no one knows that Peter Parker's Spider-Man. And I started thinking about this. I was like, well, technically Hulk or Bruce Banner doesn't know who Peter Parker, well, maybe he does, right? Because Tony came and said, I lost the kid. But he in Infinity War, he goes, oh, there's an Ant-Man and a Spider-Man. So, he hasn't officially met him yet. But of course, if the world forgets that Peter Parker's Spider-Man, so he obviously doesn't know him. So how do they interact with one another? Is it one of those things where they end up at a science fair together? Is Bruce Banner fulfilling the capacity of Dr. Kirk Connors, the guy who, he becomes the Lizard eventually? Is he going to be like a professor at Peter Parker's university? And there's a theory going around where like maybe there's a certain villain. I don't want to speculate on it, but like there's a certain villain that maybe messes with the Incredible Hulk. It makes him go savage mode. So maybe he's fulfilling that role in terms of like that Dr. Kirk Connors becoming the Lizard type of situation in the MCU. Maybe it is. But then there's also the Punisher in there. How does he factor in there? I saw someone also state, I'm not sure if it was in this article or if it was a tweet or I don't know, it kind of all blends together. But they were talking about how Peter Parker, well, Spider-Man, Punisher, and Hulk are going to fight in this movie in the beginning because they won't know who's the enemy and who's the good guy at that point in time. So it's going to be kind of interesting to see what the story is where it's going to go. Also in that article, they say that Michael Mando is coming back and he plays Scorpion, right? Mac Gragan, is right? Is that his last name? Every time I say it, it feels like it's saying it wrong, and it probably is. But he showed up in Spider-Man Homecoming, but he was more like a henchman Easter egg, it seemed like, similar to the Prowler showing up. That was played by Childish Gambino, Donald Glover. And so, but now he's coming back, so now I'm excited. Like, is he going to be wearing the suit, his costume? Is he going to fight Spider-Man? Is it going to be like the opening sequence? What is it going to be? He's a great actor. He was great in Better Call Saul. Yeah, I'm really excited about the casting that's coming together, but I'm also like really interested in where the story is gonna go. This morning, they decided to, well, yesterday morning, I should say Friday morning, they kind of teased Tom Holland's new spider suit. They showed the webbing, like the classic Sam Raimi, Tobey Maguire Spider-Man suit, where the webbing it comes up, from the suit rather than just be integrated within, clearly made. And then this morning they surprised us with Tom Holland actually in the suit and walking towards the camera and asking if they're ready, basically saying that hey, Spider-Man Brand New Day is in production. It comes out July 31st 2026, and here it is, here. And so it's just, I know it's a little thing, but it's exciting to see. It's significant because I think that them exploring these new suits, obviously he's shedding the Tony Stark stuff, right? He's not having a super suit. He's not in the Iron Spider suit. His affiliation with the MCU, well, I thought it was going to be completely severed. I thought it was going to be like this is a brand new standalone type of film, but a little bit of pieces of the MCU is coming in there. Obviously don't know the capacity, don't know the circumstances. It's impossible to tell. But there's also that little piece of there could be some dramatic storytelling because of Doomsday, and the fact that they cast Robert Downey Jr., right? There could be some emotional stakes between Spider-Man and Doomsday, the fact that he looks like Tony Stark. So that could be utilized very well. But obviously at this point in time, it's a mystery to everyone. But the end, they ended No Way Home with Peter Parker in a brand new suit, and this kind of fulfills that urge that it looks like a classic suit. It looks amazing as a practical suit rather than the CGI thing. And I can't wait to see it in action. Like, it's gonna be really fun to see. I'm happy they jumped ahead of this rather than having this ruined by the paparazzi, or people who are onlooking, because they're shooting in Scotland, I believe. So a lot of people are catching images of the set and all that stuff, and it's like, oh man, come on, guys! Like, do we have to ruin this stuff so far in advance? So I think that's why they showed the suit, because maybe they're shooting some scenes this week in the suit, and they're like, okay, it's gonna get out there anyway, so we might as well do out this video. So, plus it's Spider-Man Day or whatever, right? Next, Twinless. This comes out September 5th, 2025. This movie looks so entertaining. If you haven't seen it, it stars Dylan O'Brien, which I think is a really likable actor. I loved him in that Saturday Night Live movie, and a bunch of other things. I think he's a highlight in a lot of these movies that he shows up in. He's a really good actor. And this movie looks like, well, at first I thought it was like a coming of age, like learning how to live without your twin, and you find some kinship in someone else. But then it took this like psychological twist towards the end of the trailer where I was like, wait, everything doesn't seem the way I thought it was going to seem. Like, it was going to be this endearing buddy comedy situation. It feels like, okay, someone did something to someone's twin, or maybe one of them doesn't even have a twin and pretends to have a twin just to, you know what I mean? Like, it becomes a darker storyline. And so I'm like really curious to see how what's the direction of that film. But the trailer indicated to me, it was like, oh, you think it's going to be this sweet movie where people find friendship in one another, but in reality, one of them, something bad's going to happen to them. But yeah, if you haven't seen the trailer, you got to check that one out. Another good trailer that came out this week was in Eternity. This one just says November 2025. There's no like concrete release date. I don't know if it's going to be limited and then released in December or pushed back or whatever. I don't know. But this one's got Elizabeth Olsen and Miles Teller. And if you haven't seen this trailer, it looks, well, I mean, because I'm an MCU fan, it looks like the TVA. Like, basically the premise is these two characters are in their past life. They're in this weird, they passed away, and they're in that, deciding where to go for eternity. And I guess first Miles Teller passed away, and he's given this information, and then Elizabeth Olsen comes, and it's his wife, his present day wife, and they're like, oh, we get to choose who we get to spend eternity with. But then also her husband, who passed away, I'm assuming from going to war, comes there too. He's been waiting for her so he could spend eternity with her. And now she's stuck in the middle and she has to choose between the two men. And it's like, whoa, like this, this is going to be really entertaining. And there's a part of me that feels like, okay, she could go with either one, right? Her current husband, or she could go with, I am assuming the first husband is probably the love of her life. And she's been, she grieved and she's like, that's, that was her everything. I don't know. Maybe there's some darker elements to it. The reason why whoever she picks, obviously, that's why you're going to see the movies. You want to see who she's going to pick. It doesn't seem obvious, like The Materialist a little bit. When I saw the trailer of The Materialist, I was like, oh, well, we know who she's going to choose. This one, I'm like, who is she going to choose? So it's intriguing. I would definitely want to check that one out. Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey is being surrounded by some controversy as of late. The headline from Deadline, I didn't really like it. Just a comment on the headline because it just felt like all the blame went towards Christopher Nolan. But I get it now, like now reading it. So, but I want to tell you guys what's happening. So basically, they're filming in Morocco-occupied Western Sahara, which is not legally owned by Morocco, but there's the military forces are there. And what's happening is Nolan and his crew are being urged to halt production. From the Western Sahara International Film Festival, they say that Dakala is not just a beautiful location with cinematic sand dunes. Primarily, it is an occupied, militarized city whose indigenous Sorari population is subject to brutal repression by occupying Moroccan forces. And so I guess this is a situation of like, so either someone didn't do their research or I don't know. I guess what I was more curious about is how do they decide? I know they go scout locations, like that's part of the thing. That part of the DNA of filmmaking is scouting locations and seeing places and seeing what fits the aesthetic that you're going for your film. And in this epic film, The Odyssey, I'm assuming it needs to be vast landscapes and all that stuff and beautiful sunsets and rises and etc. Like the environment is going to play a big role in this movie, I believe. And so what they went to this location, they're like, oh, this is exactly what we're looking for. And you go and film, like, there's no like, oh, here's a pamphlet about the location. This is what's happening to make a educated guess or make a, maybe we shouldn't film here, we should film somewhere else. I don't know if that's the case. Or is this just as simple as we like this location, let's go talk to the government, let's go talk to whoever's in charge and we're going to go film there. I don't know. So I'm really curious about that. At this time, Universal nor Nolan has ever made a comment about it. So I don't know what the repercussions are. I don't know how much damage is being done from them filming there. At the end of the day, innocent people being hurt is not ever the way to go. So I don't know. I don't know the circumstances. The first time I ever heard about it. And like I said, Deadline was the first to report it. And I just felt like, broaching the subject and talking about what happens when you come across this when you're filmmaking. I mean, it's just really interesting. With The Naked Gun in theaters this weekend, I haven't had a chance to see it. I really want to see it. The thing that I love about it the most is that there's a theatrical released comedy. Like you can go to a theater and watch it with a bunch of strangers and laugh together. Now, ideally, I would like to bring a friend because it would be nice to have that shared experience and not just have a bunch of strangers. Because some of my best theatrical experiences seeing comedies have been with a friend, specifically my sister. Like, I mean, when we saw Tropic Thunder the first time, it's no better experience. We saw Tropic Thunder, we saw Due Date, we saw Bridesmaids. I mean, we've seen a lot together. But like those are like particular standouts. And I don't know, I just was curious, whatever, if you guys are listening to this, like, how do you feel about comedies? Do you like to see them in theaters or do you like to see them at home? As of late, the most recent comedies are all going straight to streaming. I mean, I think last year, was it last year? It had to be last year. That movie Jackpot came out, which I think is really, it was hysterical. We watched it. I watched it at my sister's house and it was hysterical. We were roaring laughing. We thought it was the funniest thing ever, but it was released on Prime Video. And so that's the case with a lot of these comedies. They get this, I guess, lower budget and they get put on streaming, and hopefully they have a likable cast. And hopefully it doesn't really matter. I guess it doesn't really matter if it works, because as long as it draws attention to it, most streaming movies get forgotten, and that's the unfortunate thing. Streaming is very like kind of like TikTok and Reels. It's just one of those things. Continues to flow. It just continues to in and out, in and out, in and out. And whereas back in the day, theatrical experiences tend to be a more of like more of a concrete I'm here situation. You know what I mean? And it's a weird day and age, because I remember when movies would be like they would be in theaters, they would stay in theaters, and it would take months before it hit physical media. And now it's like the turnaround is so crazy since the pandemic. And even like Happy Gilmore 2 didn't have a theatrical experience, but apparently it's a huge success on Netflix. A lot of people were tuning in to watch that one. I mean, that is a legacy sequel that could contribute to it. When I checked last weekend, the reviews and stuff were around the same as the first one. However, I don't know. I need to recheck that, to be honest with you. I wasn't a huge fan of Happy Gilmore 2, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. But yeah, so like it's exciting. It's so much fun. Like I love comedy movies. I love watching them with people. When I watch it by myself, I'm a hard laugh. I'm a really hard laugh when I'm watching movies by myself. It has to hit me in just the right way, man. And I think it comes with a lot of people too. Like a lot of people trying to make me laugh or whatever. It doesn't always hit. So I'm like, when I laugh, I mean the laugh. Like so where was I going with that? Oh yeah. So like, I love seeing movies with people and watching from home. I prefer to watch in theaters. Like I've always been a theater goer. I love watching movies in theaters. Like I said, when my sister and I saw Bridesmaids, there's no other experience quite like it. Like we had the loudest crowd. There was a couple in front of us that were just making it 10 times funnier, because just the way they would interact with one another as these scenes were happening. Or like Due Date, which the theater was a dud. When we saw Due Date, the theater was a dud, but my sister and I were cracking up. We thought it was so hysterical. And I mean, to the point where when we left the theater, we heard the group of kids that were in there too. They were like, it wasn't even that funny. Like they were like, they commented up I'm assuming us laughing at the movie, that it wasn't that funny, but it hit us just right. And then there's other movies that are like staples, like Starsky and Hutch, I think is underrated. I don't care about its reference point or what it's supposed to recreate. It's a funny movie, and it's something that my family and I still quote to this day. Stop, you. Something about Owen Wilson, man. His dynamic with Ben Stiller or with Vince Vaughn or even Jackie Chan, he's just so great at those comedic timing and those buddy comedies. But yeah, there's so many good gems out there, like Dumb and Dumber and Ace Ventura, The Mask, Liar Liar, Happy Gilmore, Big Daddy, The Wedding Singer, The Water Boy, Zoolander, Anchorman, Wedding Crashers, Ricky Bobby, Step Brothers, The Other Guys, Superbad, The Hangover, Austin Powers, I Love You Man, Meet the Parents, Mrs. Doubtfire, the Jump Street movies. There's so many more comedies. There's 80s comedies. There's great other 90s comedies. There's great, 1000 comedies. At that early aughts, is that what they say? There's a lot of great comedy movies out there, and they are still iconic, being these theatrical releases and actually being supported by the studio and being pushed out there. The Naked Gun is getting such great word of mouth as of right now. I mean, I think it got an A- on CinemaScore. It was in the 90s in terms of critic reviews. And that's fantastic. We should get more comedies in theaters. There should be more push to make fun of what's going on in the world, because that's the best thing about comedy. Comedy is that one thing that in life that is always a guarantee, but it's also something that stretches throughout genres. Every movie requires some type of levity, whether it's horror, action, drama. There's always a moment of comedic relief, right? That's what happens in these movies. Straight up comedies sometimes are just good comfort. They're just comfort. And so I just want to highlight comedies for a little bit. I know I missed some. I was trying to put this list together, and I was like, man, I'm missing some. But like these are the ones that like to me like I just remember either watching as a kid or they're just ones that I have still that I think are funny. Like these are movies that are just still highlights in my life that I still quote. Gator needs his gat, Uh, if you ain't first, you're last. Or what else is there? You know, my first day as a woman, I'm having hot flashes or whatever. Like excuse me, Flow. Like these are all movies that I still, I still reference to this day, and they stay with me, and they're still funny. That's the art of a good comedy, though. Can you still be funny years later? Can you still resonate years later? Because that's to me, that's the temperature check right there. Can you still be funny even though it's been X amount of years? Or even a rewatch. Sometimes you go see a movie in theaters and it's funny, and then you watch it at home and it's like, that don't hit the same. That didn't hit the same. You know what I mean? And then there's other times where it's a movie where it's like you could watch it for the 15th time and it's like, guess what? That moment where, well, I can't say it here on the show, but the moment where McLovin says, "You can't park here. This is a teacher lounge." I know that. It still kills me to this day. That moment in Superbad. And so, yeah, man, I just want to. What are your favorite comedy movies? Put it down below, please. I would love to read that. All right. Speaking of comedy movies, I got to check out Happy Gilmore 2. I debated on putting this on here because I do like to talk mostly about theatrical experiences. I also don't want to continue to be tied down by trying to review movies because that's not going to happen every week. I'm a dad. I don't have time to watch movies as much as I used to. But like, I was like, well, but this one's being talked about a lot still. And I kind of want to give my 2 cents, even though I was disappointed with the movie. For context, I watched Happy Gilmore a lot as a kid. It was one of those movies that my buddy and I would throw on all the time. Don't you want to go to your home and all that stuff. The movie to me, I watched it before Happy Gilmore 2. I think I said last week I put it on, and I just could relive these moments in my head as I'm hearing it in the background. And there's just something sweet about the first movie. It's endearing, it's this movie about Happy trying to get money to save his grandmother's house, and to have the grandparent there and then have Virginia there. Like there was the 2 anchors to Happy's life that just felt like, okay, it humanized him. It made the world reality despite some of the more outlandish antics that were happening throughout the movie. And then the anger wasn't like this deep thought behind it. It was just used as comedic beats. It was this exclamation mark on a lot of these moments in this film of like, being angry, the price is wrong, Bob, or whatever the case may be. And yeah, there's just something sweet about the first Happy Gilmore. And unfortunately, Happy Gilmore 2 is unable to capture that sweetness. There are moments, there's glimpses of that. But I'm just going to spoil this one moment, this major plot or story beat that I don't even know tell me below what you think it is. The moment that they decided to kill off Virginia, that's all I'm going to say, was where the movie took a turn. Like the moment it happened, I remember turning back because my wife wasn't watching, but she was in the room and it happened. I said, "Are you kidding me? What?" Like immediately soured my taste buds. I was like, "How? What? Why? Why?" That's what I was looking forward to the most, was seeing how their relationship evolved. I guess you kind of got to see it because they had like 4 or 5 kids before she passed away. But like now Happy's a single dad with all these kids and he loses everything. Like when that's a trope that they use in a lot of movies, right? To take everything away from the hero, but it's that relationship that I think that could have been the fire behind this movie. And they took that away. And I felt the same way about Once Upon a Time in Mexico when they killed off Salma Hayek. I was like, "Are you kidding me?" But that's a different reason. But like, still, why make that decision? That was a terrible choice. And so I feel like it was so frustrating. I'm not gonna lie, it was really frustrating. As soon as that happened, I was like, "Oh my gosh!" And they didn't even make up for it. After that, they're trying to explore these more mature themes, which I do appreciate. It's 30 years later. you're going to be losing people, right? And exploring themes of grief and relationships between parents, father and sons was a big through line with a lot of these characters, especially these side characters. And it's like, okay, I appreciate the maturity in that respect, but man, it's in the middle of this weird I want to say it's in the middle of this weird ass hurricane of outlandish antics that are happening. It feels like they took Happy Gilmore's Happy Place, how it's a heightened reality, and instead of and just applying it to this movie of making Happy Gilmore's Happy Place the heightened reality, like this hyper reality that doesn't feel like it has any justification of existence. Like it doesn't feel like the real world. Like at least the first Happy Gilmore had outlandish things, but it felt like it was in the real world. As silly as it may seem as a hockey player who can hit a golf ball and make it into the majors or whatever, and get as far as he did, that's more believable than whatever's happening in this movie with Maxie and all that stuff that I was like, what? You really guys just try to throw everything you could into this movie to make this movie happen. And it doesn't work. It doesn't work. It's a 2-hour zany movie that I was like, who are these characters? They're caricatures. They're cartoons. The only person that's real in here is Happy Gilmore. And Adam Sandler does a good job of being that character again, but he's in a different movie from everyone else. It's like, I'm more interested in Happy, of course, because this is his movie. That's why I stuck through to the end. But everything else is like, what? What is going on here? What? So there was so much that I just was getting frustrated at while I was watching this movie. There's some good highlights though, like the Gilmore and Shooter fight sequence in the cemetery. That was a lot of fun, but it also was like a good, I think one of those moments of like, oh, you understand that there's been a lot of loss here. And unfortunately, a lot of it brought on by Happy, and it feels like, oh, that feels really dark. If it doesn't, it just it, and then you go into the rest of the movie, you're like, okay, it's like this is just unpleasant, man. You're trying to be like this Top Gun 2, this Top Gun Maverick movie / Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning, where you're like flashing back to the first one because the first one was so meaningful, but it doesn't mean the same thing in this movie because you're not hitting the notes you need to hit to make those moments accentuate. So they're just empty, hollow. Like the only thing is that's cool about it is like, whoa, if I was Adam Sandler's friend, that'd be awesome because I could have a movie 30 years from now. I could show up again. That's amazing. That's the only thing that the flashbacks were utilized for, was just to be like, hey, you remember this guy? He was in that movie too. And it's like, come on. The cameos were insane. Too many, way too many. Took me out of the movie. I was like, this is pointless. Why have so many cameos? There's certain ones that worked. I specifically love the Eminem one. Sorry, that's just I just thought that was a lot of fun. Maybe it's because of him. It just made it that much more fun. I don't know, but to me, everything else was like, okay, why do we have to have so many cameos? What's the point? I don't understand. Then the Bad Bunny though, he was a pleasant surprise. I give you that. He had some really good moments. I love when he was catching the baseballs. I thought that was really funny and really well timed. But yeah, the cameos, the villain was so cartoonish. With the bad breath, the fart breath, like what is going on here? And there's obviously I can. There's a lot of immature comedy in here, and I'm very immature when it comes to comedy. But this one was like, we're gonna double down on everything that's immature. Like we're just gonna use juvenile jokes. We're not gonna build up to anything. There's just a bunch of gags that I think just make it hollow. But ultimately, the biggest problem I have with this is the death of Virginia. I was like, I can't believe they took that away from Happy. Like there's nothing else you could have done to make his life harder. And it's unfortunate because I think we needed a comedy, and I was hoping that this one would work. I was like, oh, it's going to Netflix. Hopefully, it's gonna be good still, even though it's not getting a theatrical release. I love Adam Sandler. I love the first Happy Gilmore, Big Daddy, and Click, and even if we just go in terms of Netflix, I loved Hustle. That movie is fantastic. So it just felt like this weird amalgamation of trying to explore these deeper themes in this zany world that doesn't match the tones. So they couldn't find the right balance between the heavy subject matter that they're covering with the, whatever antics they wanted to throw in there. So unfortunately, I gave it a 1 out of 5 stars. It just wasn't for me. I'm not gonna bag on it any further. It just wasn't worth the 20, to be honest with you. So if you liked it, that's awesome. I love the first one, and I have the first one for the rest of my life, I guess. So that's the good thing about it. That's it for this week. Like, subscribe, comment to say hi, share anything that you're excited for in Mark's Top 5. Let me know what your thoughts are on Happy Gilmore 2. Were you as disappointed as I was? And what are your favorite comedies? Please put them down below. Until next week, boats and hoes.